So I've been editing all day long my response to Anita, which is nearly finished. However, I don't feel like editing this video, and I'm just going to say what I'm going to say. Grammatical errors, sentence structures, and words that probably don't exist. That's what happens when I don't edit things. Nonetheless, I want to talk to you about a phrase known as everything happens for a reason. There is a logical response to this and an illogical response to this. I'm going to be dealing with the illogical response to everything happens for a reason, because the logical response to this is what we know as cause and effect. Yes, things do happen for reasons. For example, if I get into a car, drink, and I get into a car wreck because I was driving drunk, I caused a car accident, I killed someone, that's called cause and effect. That happened for a reason because I decided to drink, I decided to get into a vehicle, and I decided to drive. Stupid decision. Everything happens for a reason. In regards to cause and effect, things do happen for reasons. However, the illogical response to this is the religious people, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, the Christians, any religious person for that matter. They try to use this phrase as a form of comfort, and granted, I do understand why, because they think it's going to make you feel better. When I was growing up in church, being heavily bullied and going through a lot of the difficult struggles I was going through, I was told this cop-out bullshit coping mechanism many, many times. It's a coping mechanism which, if you think about it, doesn't make a lot of sense, and it actually makes the person telling you that everything happens for a reason, the religious person, to be an absolute asshole. That being said, why doesn't everything happen for a reason in regards to in regards to religion, is because it implies that God has a divine plan for you, or not necessarily God, but some supernatural being has a divine plan set out for you, that whenever something trial, a bad thing happens to you, therefore something's good is going to come out of it. Now granted, I don't believe in God, I believe that's bullshit. However, I do believe that a negative experience that someone may experience, whether it be from bullying, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, whatever it be, I believe that you can use those negative experiences to make them into positive experiences and make you into a stronger person in the future. However, I don't believe that's an act of God. I don't believe God is using verbal abuse or sexual abuse as a form of everything happens for a reason, God's allowing this to happen to make you a stronger person. That's bullshit. And typically when I have a Mormon, a Jehovah's Witness, or a religious person come up to my door and they give me their spiel, God died for you, God loves you, God all this shit. They give you this spiel, I usually bring up this point. I bring up my Aunt Jeannie. My Aunt Jeannie, which is my grandma's sister who is now dead, she was disabled. She was deaf and could not speak. The only way she could speak is through a little bit of sign language. My mom's side of the family was they didn't have a whole lot of money back then, so when they found out that her problems, they couldn't get her proper education on communication, sign language classes and things like that, so she had no way to verbally communicate to people. And it was a very sad scenario. Well, it happens to be so when my aunt hit about 15, this is in about 1950s, 60s, when she hit 15, she got asked out by a guy, and that guy took her out on a date. Little did my aunt know, being deaf and not being able to communicate, is that this guy got her out on a date, and then 3 other men showed up, and they gang raped her. My Aunt Jeannie was gang raped by 4 different men. She couldn't speak, and she couldn't hear. Now, from that experience, she experienced what is known as, psychological traumatic abuse. When people are sexually assaulted or go through different experiences, everybody is different in how they cope and what happens to them personally. Well, because she couldn't speak and because she couldn't hear, how are you supposed to communicate to your family that you've been gang raped by 4 different men? How are you going to do that? This is the 1960s we're dealing with. We didn't have a whole lot of stuff back then to deal with these types of issues. We didn't have a whole lot of translators and on and on and on. So my aunt grew up with so much trauma from that experience and not being able to talk about it that anytime a male, I remember this like it was yesterday, when I was 9 years old, I got to meet my Aunt Jeannie for the first time, and I couldn't understand. I thought she was weird, because what she would do is the moment she would see me or my grandpa, she would pull out a piece of paper, right, like this, just a little notepad paper, pull out a pen, and she would do like this. because she couldn't talk, remember that. And she would be writing on this piece of paper. She'd write, and guess what she would write? She'd put the pencil so deep into the paper, she'd write, I hate men, I hate men, I hate men, I hate men. Now, me being 9 years old at the time, I was like, what the fuck is she doing? It was scary to me and creepy and weird. I was like, why does she hate men? You know, me being a 9-year-old naive little Christian boy, I had no idea that psychological abuse and not psychological abuse, but sexual being rape like that can cause someone who's already disabled to have even more problems. And she hated men. That's all she could do is just write, I would hate men anytime my Grandpa Ermy would walk in. Now, it wasn't until I was 15 years of age where my parents explained to me why she would do this. But to this day, when Christians, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses come up to me and say, God loves you, God has a plan for you, everything happens for a reason, I bring up this story. I tell them this story. And they look at me and they're speechless. They don't know what to fucking say to me. Do you know what? Because what can you say? Are you going to tell me that my Aunt Jeannie, that somehow some greater good came out of her being gang raped by 4 different men and her having all of these problems? And her suffering, not being able to express or talk to anybody about what happened? Did you really think some good is going to come out of that? No. Everything that happens for a reason is bullshit. It's a bullshit coping mechanism in which the religious try to use towards people to comfort you to make you feel better. But even if you are religious, if someone says to you this, challenge that. Because it is a load of horseshit. And you should not let someone treat you that insensitively by trying to make you feel better by saying God allowed this to happen to make you stronger. No. If you've been through a traumatic experience, you became stronger from that experience because you used those negative things to become a stronger person and a better person, not because some fucking ultimate being decided to say, I think I'm going to let this happen to you, and hey, you got raped, you got molested, let's see how well you come out in the future, It enrages me when I hear this bullshit, everything happens for a reason from religious folks. So I guess my response to people is challenge everything. When someone's challenge everything, think about everything, and don't let phrases like this be said to you unwarranted. Like if someone says that everything happens for a reason, use an example, use a situation to refute their bullshit coping mechanism that they're trying to make you feel better. Because you need to challenge things. You need to challenge religious phrases and religious claims, and that is one of them. Everything happens for a reason. No, it doesn't.